Ahoy! Today we're talking about the next data mining for patch 8.5. In that we have more information on Morgan Le Fay and the next god afterwards, who is now basically confirmed Charybdis. As always, keep in mind that this information is from SMITE Datamining, so it is subject to change, but Charybdis as a name now appears in the files, so it's likely that that is what we'll be getting, and that was what we expected beforehand anyways, because every indication basically pointed in that direction. Now, what is still not 100% clear is what roles these goddesses will be, and I want to talk about that one first. I originally suspected that Morgan Le Fay would be a mage, and then eventually thought that she might be a magical assassin. Now, at the moment, the information that we have on one hand is that she is a mage, magical and melee, but her basic attack is a hand projectile. When it comes to Charybdis, the note is that she is a magical mage with area damage. So far the information for both of these gods is that they are magical. And then we already had another mage this season with Tiamat, which is kind of weird because we know that at least one god of each role is supposed to come out this season. Now, there are 2 more gods after that, but we have 3 roles to fill. We need a hunter, an assassin, and a guardian, because we have a mage and a warrior so far. And if both of these characters are effectively mages, that wouldn't really add up. So what could be the case is that Morgan Le Fay is actually a magical hunter, and they classify that as the hunter for the season, but I think that would make a lot of people very unhappy. Or it could be that the information for Charybdis is either incorrect or meant to throw us off, and maybe she's actually a guardian or something, and not really a mage. But at the same time, the last god this season is very likely Atlas, and the only fits that I could possibly see for him are warrior or guardian, since I don't see how other roles would fit onto this character. And that makes it even more confusing, because then it wouldn't make sense for Charybdis to be a guardian either. So we'll have to find out, but so far there is a chance, I would say, that either Morgan Le Fay is actually the magical hunter, or that she's just labeled as magical at the moment to throw us off. What makes it even more confusing is that in terms of release order, a mage is the last thing we'd expect right now as well. Technically, the next character should be a guardian and then an assassin in terms of the normal successive order, but we know that Hi-Rez doesn't always follow that. With that out of the way, let's talk about the info that we have from Morgan Le Fay at this point. Beyond somehow being mage, melee and range, she also has a general note for area damage and medium crowd control. Her kit also includes a dragon, which works as a deployable, so it's probably for one of the first 2 abilities. She also has a throne, which is likely for the lobby or windscreen. Other information that can't be linked to anything is the fact that she has a magic shot projectile, marks, an Arthur preview, a dragon preview, a sword FX, and something called Luna in the text that can't be linked to anything. But where she has new information is when it comes to her passive. So the passive is a sword rune. This has up to 5 types of runes from A to E. And there are some passives under this. There is a passive eruption buff, a passive base power, and a passive scaling power. So it seems like there is some way in which she can activate runes and then get additional effects that apply for a certain time or maybe even permanently. But let's reach forward a little bit here to the 3rd ability, because the 3rd ability apparently works together with the passive. The notes here are: has a debuff. Each basic attack extends the debuff duration for 1 second. Works with passive. Also has a buff with an area of effects. Projectile sides, so maybe projectiles that are shot to the sides. And it has a bonus hit. So it seems like this ability has its own mechanics, but also in some way affects the passive. This could, for example, mean that it always passively supports the passive in some way, and then if you use it and activate it, it amplifies it further. Or it could mean that if you hit enemies with it, it procs certain effects of the passive. The extended duration may also have something to do with it. Maybe you can hit enemies and then extend the effects from your passive somehow. That makes me think that she may be going in the direction of either a hunter or a basic attack focused mage assassin, which I guess we already have in the game as well with our Kwang. Her first ability has a deployable, There is a warm-up time and an explosion of a sigil. There's a sword that has a radius of 12.5, and the ability is split into 3 parts, A, B, and C. We don't have information about part A, but we have something about part B now. It is a deployable with a distort FX, with a warm-up and explode. About part C, we only know that it also comes with this warm-up and explode. To me, it sounds like you place a sword on the ground and it then causes explosions. Maybe somewhat similar to Pele, only that you can place the sword on the ground somewhere else and then the explosions come out from the sword. Maybe it's the sword in the stone, which is also King Arthur's weapon, Excalibur. When it comes to her second ability, we don't have any new information. It's a deployable with a deploy mesh and a projectile. Again, this may be tied to the dragon effect somehow. About the ultimate, we know that it works as a projectile shot with up to 3 shots during 6 seconds of time. After that 6 seconds, the player will be kicked out of the ability, and the projectile also has 5 stages where it increases in size from 1.5 to 3.5 scale. It is based on marks, with each step increasing from 1 to 5 marks. There was a note here already that this is probably from the passive. I think now that we know the passive, that seems more likely that probably these 5 runes come into play here, and the more runes you have, the bigger the size of the projectile or something. Then there are some numbers added that just basically repeat what I already said, like max ammo 3 and so on. And there is a lifesteal buff on this as well. So again, many things here that seem to have something to do with range. Unfortunately, no mention of the illusions or anything that were hinted at in her trailer. And it seems that since she's also basic attack focused, the odds of her being a magical hunter are relatively high now. I don't know how that will work out without all hunter players being upset because they're not getting a new guard since Danzaburo for the entire year then. But I guess that is for Hyris to determine. Or maybe they actually change her to a physical character, who knows. Or maybe she's something else after all, but my bet for now will be on a mage hunter. And then we have Charybdis, where we have a lot more information as well. So again, we now know that this is really Charybdis, and her note is that she is a magical mage with area damage. But I'm again also not very sure if that's actually what she's going to be. I don't see why we would be getting another mage so quickly before the other roles are covered. Her general data is that she has a maw mesh. And there are also fish meshes related to the maw. So that means we will definitely get the monster form of Charybdis. We will not get some humanized form or something, but some giant maw. Obviously, there could be something like a humanesque figure on top of that as a bait or something that then gets consumed whenever she attacks. Who knows, but I doubt it. I think she'll just be a maw. What I don't know is how this will work out in terms of sizing, because it wouldn't really make sense for her to just be in the floor. I think that would be very hard to see. So I imagine it would be similar to Habois maybe, where the water just swirls up to a certain height so you can recognize her as an enemy. We don't have any information about her passive yet, but we do have information about her basic attack now, which states that it's an in-hand projectile basic attack. So again, this would sound like a mage is a fitting role here. Most Guardians don't have ranged basic attacks. Ability 1 has a projectile and multiple stages. That's all we know so far. Ability 2 is a shooter ability with a wave FX and multiple stages. It also has some kind of targeter, and it debuffs enemies. Now it's very unsurprising that a sea monster would have some sort of wave ability in their kit. So the question here is if this is going to be a wave that you send out, or if it's maybe something more like a dash, like a Habois ultimate, and that is yet to be found out. Ability 3 has multiple stages. There is a deployable A, deployable B, hit FX, and a knockout. Her ultimate uses passive stacks, has stages, and some kind of shooting. Now, keep in mind here that if there wasn't this initial node with magical, mage, and area damage, then this could be interpreted in completely different ways. So it could be that maybe the magical mage node is actually accidentally on Charybdis and not even meant to be for Charybdis. And maybe some people speculate that this might be the hunter this year, that we're getting a very unusual hunter. I could imagine that being possible since we see a lot of projectile attacks, a lot of ranged attacks in this kit once again. We had quite a few ranged or semi-ranged characters lately, but then the last two releases were Tiamat, who has a melee stance, and Gilgamesh, so that's probably why they're pushing towards the ranged guards for a bit. And then last but not least, there is a good chance that the next guard after that will be Cliodhna, because in the files from the data mining is the location Blarney Castle, which is related to Cliodhna's lore. If you know that story in greater detail, you can check out my last data mining where I explained that. If you want to stay updated for future SMITE data mining and other SMITE news, click like and subscribe, or I will go to my garage, hide in the corner, stare at my home gym, and thanks to my patrons for making this video possible. That includes That Nick Walker, Dwayne Brennan, Lenta25 Green, Zed the Undead, Nevitz Jr., Rawas, Angel, and everyone else you see here.